welcome back for episode number 164 of the weekly playback. It has been many weeks since I've shot a weekly playback video, because I think the last one I did was probably before I went to Essen, which was back in October. And then after coming back from Essen, I shot a haul video, and I was intending to shoot a weekly playback video, but then I became sick, which I always do after going to Essen. I always manage to pick up some kind of a bug. This time it was not COVID, but it was definitely something else, which made me feel pretty bad. And then FlagCon came up, so have not been able to shoot a weekly playback video in a very long time, which means I've played a shit ton of games over the last few weeks, and I won't be able to talk about all of them because then this video would be like 4 hours long and I will definitely run out of steam. So what I'm going to do is try to spend more time on the games that I think other content creators don't have much coverage for, games that, maybe were a bit harder to get, or whatever. And I'm going to focus less on the games that there is a lot of coverage for, such as Wispwood or Echoes of Time or the White Castle Duel. But of course, I'll still mention all the games I played and talk a little bit about them. I'm going to really try to have some self-control and not go into lengthy explanations for every game, because I know I tend to do that even when I say I'm not going to. So I'm going to do my very best. And of course, I'm going to talk about FlagCon in this video and give an update about the cat fundraiser, and I will talk about PAX Unplugged, which is coming up, and all of that stuff. So, and it's winter time now. It's already snowing here in upstate New York, so I do have my heat on, which at times will come on, so you'll hear that kind of air humming noise because I have forced air heating. So apologies for that if that is distracting. All right, let's get started. Let's talk about Ghost Lift. So Ghost Lift is a 2025 game designed by Onegir, and the art is done by Sai Beppu, and I absolutely love the art, and it is published by Endgames. And this is a card shedding game for 2 to 6 players. So this was a highly sought after game at Essen, so I'm really glad I got a copy, and I of course sleeved all the cards. So I'll just show you what the insert looks like. So the insert looks like this. So if you sleeve the cards, there is going to be a little bit of box lift, lid lift, and there is this elevator marker for up and down, which I'll explain what that means. And then you're going to have a ghost in every number for all the players for each card that there is. So cards are numbered 1 through 10. So you will have ghosts numbered 1 through 10 with a white side and a green side. So the way that this game plays is at the start of the game, you're going to, of course, shuffle all the cards and then reveal a card at the center of the table. And the rule book will tell you whether the elevator will start on up or down based on the starting card. So in this case, it's a 4, so it would start with going up. So now when it's your turn, all the players are going to be dealt a certain number of cards in their hand. I believe that the cards that you were dealt, I believe you're dealt 4 cards, or how many is it? Let's see. 6 cards. So each player starts with 6 cards in hand. So again, the cards are numbered 1 through 10, and there's going to be multiples of each number, and some of the cards will say up or down on them. For example, the 7 says up on it. There's even going to be a number 2 that says down on it. And of course, the only number that you can go down from 2 is 1. So there's going to be some cards that have up or down written on them, which will change the direction of the elevator. So on your turn, you have to play a card that is now going in the direction in which the elevator says, equal to the number of cards that is already there or higher. So if I'm the first player, I can play 1 5 if I wanted to, because I'm going up. Or if I wanted to, I could play 2 5s. Now the next player has to play at least 2 cards. And if the direction of the elevator changes, then you're also going to change it based on the cards that are played. So you're always matching the number of cards or exceeding it, and going in the direction in which the elevator indicates. So again, cards are numbered 1 through 10. So if you get, if someone played, for example, 3 9s and it's still going up, you're now going to need to play at least 3 10s. And if you don't have you know, the cards necessary to play in order to, you know, meet the requirement, then you have to pass. So if I play something and then every other player passes after me, then the cards that are in the center get wiped out and put into discard. And now I would get to start, you know, again, with playing a card. So if I'm, you know, if all the cards have been wiped out because all the other players passed, I can play one card, or if I have all the cards of the same number in my hand, then I can shed my entire hand if I want to, which would end the round. So a round ends once one player has shed their entire hand. However, I forgot to mention how you get more cards. So there is a market of cards. There's going to be 3 cards face up, and anytime you take a turn, whether that's playing a card or passing, you have the option to select the cards, one of the cards that is face up. However, if you're, you know, filling the market and a repeat comes up, you would stack the repeats together, and if you decide to take that number, you would have to take the whole stack of repeats. So for example, if I'm filling the market and 2 6s, you know, there's already a 6 in the market and another 6 appears, I would stack it up on top of this. And if on my turn I decided to pick up the 6s, I would have to take all of them. So sometimes you might end up picking up a stack of like 4 cards because they kept on coming up in the market when you're refilling the market. So you're always going to refill until there's at least 3 distinct numbers showing. And you can pick up cards or choose not to pick up cards on after you've taken your turn, after you've played something, or after you've passed. So I already talked about what happens if everyone passes, and then you start again until someone has shed their entire hand, then that ends the round. Now you're going to look at which cards you have remaining in hand, and for each distinct number you have remaining in hand, you are going to take 1 ghost of that number. So for example, if these were the cards I had left over in my hand, 3, 2 4s, and a 5, then in that case, and I know that the 3s actually are those, yeah. Let me just turn them all the right way up because that will help distinguish the 3 from the 5, which look very similar. So as you can see, the 3 and the 5 look very similar, but you can look at the artwork to kind of distinguish them. So in this case, I have 2 4s, but I would only take 1 ghost of the number 4, and I would take a ghost of the number 3 and a ghost of the number 5, and I would have them white side up. Now, if another round ends and I have one of these numbers again, I'm now going to flip those ghosts to the green side. And again, I will collect any ghosts that I have, any numbers that I don't have ghosts for yet, I will collect white ghosts for those. Again, distinct numbers. So if I've collected, you know, if I've got cards left over in a subsequent round that I had a ghost for already, it's going to turn green. So the game will end once one player has collected 3 green ghosts, or one of their green ghosts would be haunted and go away, meaning that you ended a 3rd round with that number in your hand. So that is how the game is going to end. So when the game ends, you have one loser and everyone else is like the winner, which I'm not a huge fan of. I want a distinct winner. So I've played this game at least 4 or 5 times now, and we've come up with some different house rules. I've played with different groups and different times. So in one group I played with, we came up with a point-based system. Now this could, you know, be a little bit, you know, what could maybe some people won't like this, but you know, we came up with a system where the person who you know, lost is obviously the loser, so their points don't matter, but for the rest of the people, each white ghost you have would be worth 1 point, and each green ghost you have would be worth 2 points. And the person with the lowest amount of points is the winner. Now, of course, there's quite a bit of luck involved in this game, so maybe you don't care that much about who is actually the winner and the loser, but I do care. So I want a distinct winner. So I like the point-based system. And then, you know, in one of the groups I was playing, we were coming up with some fun ideas for expansions or some other rules. So someone said, oh, if you collect a ghost of every number, that should wipe out all your ghosts. It should be like, you know, what's that called? Hitting, there's a term for it when you're trying to like actually lose in like trick-taking games, shooting the moon or something like that. So if you're shooting the moon or whatever it's called and you get a ghost of every number, someone was like, that should wipe out all your ghosts and you should get a clean slate, which would be pretty awesome. I like that rule. Of course, it could make the game go on forever, of course. And another idea we had was in an expansion have a Ghostbuster card, which would allow you to eliminate a ghost you know, so if you have a green ghost, you could get rid of a green ghost. Again, that could lengthen the game. So I definitely like the point-based system. As far as the other ideas, you know, take them or leave them. Those are just some ideas that me and my friends came up with. But that is essentially Ghost Lift. So it is a card shedding game. You know, so Scout is a popular card shedding game. I like this better than Scout. I was not a huge fan of Scout, and I will probably cull my copy, even though I had bought a custom insert for it so that everything could fit nicely in that tiny little box. But I think I'm going to get rid of Scout, cull Scout, and just keep this instead, because I especially love the artwork of this game too. Like, it's very Edward Gorey-esque artwork. And there's even a doggy ghost. Let me find the doggy. Let me see if I can find the doggy. I'm pretty sure I showed this in the haul video, but I just really, really love the artwork in this game. Where are you, doggy? Wow, the dog is just not coming up right. Oh, here he is. Yeah. Do wish there was a cat. If there were a cat, that would be pretty awesome. So yeah, so that is Ghost Lift. And again, this was a highly sought after game at Essen. And unless you had an exhibitor's pass, chances are you probably would not have been able to get this game because they were selling about 50 copies each day. And this is the same publisher that had Nikosu Dice a few years ago when that was a really hot game. And again, they were only selling like 50 copies of those a day. So again, you needed to have an exhibitor's pass in order to get that. So I feel like this publisher knows that their games are going to be really hot, and maybe they should come with more copies of their games to sell at Essen rather than just like 50 a day. But yeah, so that was Ghost Lift, and I don't know when it will be widely available, but if that sounds like something you're interested in, then you should check it out. And this was not a review copy. Of course, I had to pay for this. So yeah, so that was Ghost Lift. So let's move on. So let's talk about Daydream. This is one of the games that I purchased at full price at Essen. So this is a 2025 game for 1 to 5 players, designed by Anthony Perrone and Benoit Turpin, and the art is done by Meme Candia, and it's published by Disto Studio. Now this is a roll and write game with many different game options, and I absolutely love this game. I've played 1 2-player game of it and like 5 solo games of this now, using the different board options. And what I mean by the different board options is, well, first of all, it's for up to 5 players, and it comes with 5 different dry erase boards, which are just really nice, and these beautiful purple dry erase markers and cloud-shaped erase cloths and 2 purple dice. So as you can tell, I absolutely love this game because purple is my favorite color, and it has a cat in it. Yeah, so absolutely love it. And I feel like the girl kind of even looks like me, like she has dark hair. So, okay, maybe that's the extent of it, but still. So in this game, it's really interesting. So you can make different combinations with the board, and you'll see on the bottom of each page, there is a letter, and that will tell you what combination you are playing. And so you will refer to the rule book for the rules of your specific combination. So in order for an easy game, you would play just 1 panel. For a medium game, you would play 2, and for a hard game, you would play with all 3 on one side or the other. And there are going to be distinct rules for each side. So for example, this side, when you're playing with all 3 panels, you're going to ignore the Polaroids. You only play with that if you're playing with 2 panels. So on that, you would ignore the Polaroids, but you're going to be using these moons, the moon garland and stuff. And on the other side, you also have Polaroids, which you would ignore if you're doing all 3, but you would be playing with the constellation. And the solo mode is much more challenging than the multiplayer mode. So how do you play? You're going to first roll these dice, and the dice are numbered 1 through 6. They're just regular dice. And the numbers you put down in the clouds can go up to a maximum of 9. So because you do have modifiers that you can use. But you're going to start the game by starting with 2 numbers, which you're going to try to place far apart. Now, you see that there's clouds that are split into, that are like in rows and columns. So here's a column, here's a row, here's a column, here's another row. Now this is not part of the same row as this, because as you can see, there's a gap here. So this cloud is not a part of this row. And then at the end of each row and column, you'll see a circle and a sun. Now those are important for, you trying to achieve the best cloud filling that you can. So what you're going to do is at the start of the game, you're just going to roll the dice and have 2 starting numbers, and you're going to place them in any 2 clouds you want anywhere. All the players are going to do this. Then as you play, you're going to roll the dice, and then you're going to try to put down the numbers somewhere. Now, if you complete So I'm just going to explain how this game works by just writing in some numbers right now. So if I completed this column of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there are 6 numbers in that column and they are in consecutive order. So in this case, I would fill in the sun, and now I would have 6 lines to connect in these objects up here from sun to sun instead of dot to dot. So I would have 1 line here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the object is to complete as many, the object goal of the game is to complete as many objects up here as you can. And some of these, when you complete an object, you will see a bonus that you can collect. You can either collect a sun, which means you can make 1 more connection between 2 suns, or you can collect a leaf. I highly recommend getting the leaves because the leaves, you can fill them in order to modify a die. Now, the leaves at the bottom, how you would end up circling more leaves is if you choose to skip 1 of the dice. Per turn, you can only skip 1 die. You cannot skip both. So if you choose to skip 1 of the dice, you're going to then circle a leaf. Now, the solo mode is harder because if you do that, you're also going to have to draw a thorn onto this vine. So if you skip a leaf in the solo game, you have to draw a thorn on the vine. Now, once you've circled a leaf, you can later fill it in on a subsequent turn or even that turn. So for example, if you skipped 1 die, you can now fill it in and then modify the other die by plus or minus 1. So you're trying to fill in these rows and columns in consecutive order so that you can fill in the suns and fill in these objects quicker. If you have all the numbers filled in, but they're not in consecutive order, so for example, like this one, so now I have a 3, a 5, a 4, and a 2, and a 6. In that case, I would fill in the dot here instead of the sun. And here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers. So 5 clouds. So now I would make 5 connections between dot and dot. So now you can see that that's going to take longer to complete objects because the dots are closer together than the suns. So you would only go from dot to dot instead of from sun to sun. And again, you're going to do it equal to the number of clouds that there are in the row or column you just completed. So you're trying very hard to get your clouds to have consecutive numbers. And as you start filling this up, it's going to get harder and harder because, certain clouds are going to like mess up certain columns and rows are going to mess up other columns and rows. So I really doubt you will be able to get an absolutely perfect board. Like that would be really hard. So again, you're trying to fill up as many objects as you can and collect those leaf bonuses because those are going to be very helpful. And again, you can only skip 1 die per turn. Now, in this side of the board, anytime you write a number where you see the stars, you will get to fill in that many lines of your constellation. And then at the end of the game, if you're playing with the constellation side of the board, you're going to add up how many of the big stars you reached at the end of the game and add that to your score. What else? Not going to talk about the Polaroids, but let's look at the other side of the board. The other side of the board, you have these garlands. So anytime you fill a cloud that has a moon symbol on it, you're going to write the same number that you wrote in that cloud in the moon, the first moon. And then if you write the same number in the second moon, you would get to circle the number here, which will gain you points at the end of the game. So with your garland, you're trying to get the same numbers in these moons in order to collect those points. If you don't have matching numbers, then you would not circle the number between the 2 moons because you don't get those points. So at the end of the game, you're going to add up the total number of objects you completed, not partially completed objects, and you'll add up any additional points you gain from the garland or the constellation, and that will be your score. Again, on this side of the board, there's also an advanced side using these frames, which I won't talk about, but that's another, challenging part of this game that can make it way more challenging, and the frames are really hard if you're playing with the frames because you have to try to fill in the frames before filling in a certain object in order to gain some additional points, and I find that very difficult to do because the frames are far apart as well, the matching frames. yeah, so, oh, and on one side here, you also have music notes. So with the music notes, you're trying to get all the clouds adjacent to the music notes to have the same number. And if they are, then you would get to fill in all the notes. But in this case, if you only have like 2 clouds that are of the same number, you would fill in only one of the note symbols here. So those are also going to give you additional points at the end of the game. In the solo mode, so as I said, if you skip a die in the solo mode, you have to draw a thorn on your vine. At the end of the game, for every 2 thorns you have, you would subtract 1 point, or maybe it's 2 points actually. No, I think it's 1 point. I can just double check solo mode. -1, yeah. So -1 point. So that makes the, you know, solo mode more challenging, but really love this game. Like I said, I've played 5 games of this, absolutely obsessed with this roll and write. Especially because it has all these different modes on it that you can play with the different combinations, you know, with Polaroids, with music notes, with frames, like just all the different combinations you can play with are just pretty fun, and it's really challenging. And there was one game where I think I started, I don't know if this is cheating, but like I started the game and then I stopped and then restarted it because I realized that the starting numbers I placed for my clouds were not placed in good areas. And then sometimes I would really mess up and I'd be like, okay, this sucks, I'm gonna start over. So yeah, so it is challenging, but a lot of fun, and absolutely love this game. Again, it, you know, comes with 5 dry erase boards, which is really amazing. Really nice components with the cloud cloths like that matches, you know, the purple markers, just absolutely a very fun, delightful, charming, challenging roll and write game. So if you like roll and writes, highly recommend this one, especially if you like playing roll and writes solo, and especially because there are so many game combinations. So let me just show you the menu, because there is a menu that shows you all the different combinations. So where is the menu? So we've got the menu here, yeah. So here you'll see the easy ones, the mediums, and then the hards. So yeah, so you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you have 8 different combinations you can play with. And then the rule book will specify the rules for each of those combinations, what you use, what you don't use, etc. So again, highly recommend this. It's from a small indie publisher called Disto Studio, and Benoit Turpin is the same guy who I believe designed Welcome To, which I am a huge fan of, but now this surpasses Welcome To for me. Yeah, so he did the Welcome To Flip and Write games. He also did the art project, Welcome to the Moon. But yeah, I prefer this to all of those games. Just really love it. It's probably my favorite purchase from Essen, to be honest. Just absolutely love this game, and I can foresee myself like taking this on long vacations if I, you know, want something to keep me occupied. Like, just really cannot say enough good things about this game. So absolutely love it, and I'm really glad I picked it up and convinced a few people at Essen to pick it up as well, and they are very grateful as well. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then, you know, ask your game store to import it and bring it to your game store so that you can purchase it as well, because I highly recommend it. So that was Daydream. So let's move on. Let's talk about Pilgrims Curious Adventures. This is a 2025 game for 1 to 4 players, designed and illustrated by Radim Jurda, and it's published by Pink Troubadour Games. And this was near the top of my list for Essen, and I purchased this at a very slight discount. Not much of a discount, but just very slight for being a content creator. So just for full transparency. Now in this game, you have area movement and contract fulfillment, but it's just a very like delightful, charming family weight game. Absolutely love it. So I did sleeve the cards because the cards in this game, they were of the quality that I feel like would be hard to shuffle or like separate. So I did sleeve all of the cards. So the cards that you'll see here are going to be sleeved. So you're going to have this one main board, and on this main board, you're going to place cards to begin with. So anytime you see a campfire, you're going to place a companion person there, because you're basically going to be creating a caravan of people. I'll call them caravans. I really don't know. But you're going to have companion cards that are you're going to be shuffling and then placing in the campfires to start the game with. And then all of the other squares, rectangles rather, will have item cards. And up here, you're going to have some public goal tiles that you'll be trying to meet. This is the round tracker, so there are 4 rounds. And this you'll be using to determine how many points you scored from the public quest tiles. I believe they're actually called quest tiles. And then at the top of the board, you're going to have some adventure cards that you're going to be trying to fulfill. So you're going to have level 1 and level 2 adventure cards. So let me just pull out an example of each. So let's see. So here is an example of a level 1 adventure card. And here is an example of a level 2 adventure card. And I'll explain how these work when we get to that part of the game. Each person is going to start with their leader and their own board. So in this game, the purple is for solo mode only. So you're not going to be playing with the purple board unless you're playing solo, which of course makes me sad because purple is my favorite color. So I played with the blue character. So you're going to take your board and place your leader tile onto the board. And each person has a leader tile with the same ability on the bottom, but different activation tokens, symbols. So these are activation symbols, and I'll explain what that means. But everyone's board is going to look the same. So you'll all have movements that you can take, and you'll see the movements that you can do here. So at the start of the game, what you're going to do is each person is going to, in reverse turn order, take turns placing their meeples somewhere onto the main board, into one of the corners. And you're going to take that card and add it to your starting hand. You will start your starting hand with, I believe, 1 item card. I can't remember how many you start with. Let me just double check. So player setup. You will start with 1 item card from the deck, yes. And you will start with your 3 movement tokens, which you'll be placing onto your board when you take a movement. You will have quills, so you'll also have these little quill tokens that you'll be using in order for the public quest tiles. So let me just show you a quill token. So each person will have 2 quills, and you will be able to complete 2 public quests. Okay. So on your turn, what you're going to do is you're going to take 1 of your 3 movement tokens and place it onto 1 of these movements. And that will specify the movement that you can take and which card you can take. So for example, if I used the horse, you'll see that here's my person. So I would need to go 2 to the side and then 1 in the other direction. Now with these movements, you can flip and rotate them as necessary when you're taking your movement on the main board. So where you see the dot in the filled in card, that indicates the card you're going to now pick up and where your meeple is going to end up. So if on my first turn I decided to use the horse movement, I'm going to cover the horse, and then on the main board I'm going to now take that movement and pick up the card indicated and add it to my hand. So during this game, you're trying to add companions to your caravan, to your party, and you're trying to activate your companions and your main pilgrim, your main leader, in order to use their special abilities, get more item cards. More and more item cards are now going to help you to fulfill adventure cards and public quests. So let me just show you some examples of different people. So for example, here is a woodcutter. Now, if I pick this up, I would add it to the left of my board, and he is now a part of my party. You can only have 3 companions at a time. If there's a point in a game where I want a new companion, this one would get retired and he would go underneath my leader tile. And you're going to save all of your retired companions because they will be relevant for scoring in the end. So when companions are no longer a part of your party, they retire underneath your leader tile. As you're collecting companions, you're going to want to collect activation cards, item cards that will activate their special abilities. So after you've done your movement, the next thing you can do is to activate a card. So you can activate your main leader, or you can activate one of your companions. And by the way, the game comes with these really handy dandy player aid tiles. They're not cards, they're actually tiles, which are really nice. So now during the activate phase, you can either pay an item to activate a companion or your leader, or you can gain a clover token. Okay, so gaining a clover token is something you might want to do if all of your companions and leader have been activated and you don't want to have to discard an item to reactivate it. So if you activate it, you're going to place an item below that matches one of those activation symbols. But the companion cards will only have one activation symbol showing, so you're going to have to match that activation symbol exactly if you want to activate it. I'm pretty sure that most companion cards, I think all of them just show one symbol. I could be wrong. There might be some that show more, but here's a witch. She requires a star in order to activate her special ability. So now let me just show you some item cards so that you can see what I mean. So these item cards, you will see, have different activation symbols. So those are the symbols that you are looking at in order to activate a card. So if I had the witch and I wanted to activate the witch, if I had managed to collect this card on an earlier turn, or during the same turn actually, because that's possible, I could now place it underneath my witch and activate her. So now I can do her special ability after I already did my main movement. So now I can move my meeple from where he or she is and move it to one of these orange rectangles. So I can move it 2 spaces or 3 spaces and collect one of those cards. And if it's a companion, add it to my party. Or, you know, if I already have 3 companions, you know, retire a companion, or if it's an item, then just add it to my hand. And there is no limit to how many items you can hold in hand. So you're trying to activate your companions in order to use their abilities to collect more and more item cards, which again, you want to do in order to fulfill adventure cards and public quests. So after I've activated once, so either I've activated an ability or I've taken a clover token, now I have the option of doing an adventure. But before I talk about that, I do want to mention that every leader, when you activate them, you will get to do this plus reserve an adventure card. So you can only have 1 reserved adventure card at any one time. The board will always have a total of 5 adventure cards above it, and they will change from how many level 1s and how many level 2s between rounds. So at round 1, you're going to have 3 level 1s and 2 level 2s, and then same for round 2, but then in round 3, you'll have 2 level 1s and 3 level 2s, and same for round 4. So you can reserve an adventure card and place it next to your board, which means now the other player can't complete that adventure card. So again, an example of an adventure card is this. So for adventure cards, you need the required companions as indicated by these symbols. So I would need 1 with this hat, 1 with this hand symbol, and then just any random companion. So you have to have those companions in your party in order to complete an adventure card, but not to reserve it. If you're going to reserve it after activating your leader, you would just place it next to your board. But I'm talking now about completing adventure cards. So you would need those required companions, and then you need item cards matching these symbols on top. This is an easier one, so it's all 4 of the same. Actually, you might argue that that may be harder because they're all the same. Here's one showing 3 greens and 1 blue. So now you need those items. Now items can come from below companions, because once you activate a companion, the item stays below the companion until you use it, or to complete an adventure card, or if you retire that companion, then the item card gets discarded. So when you're completing adventure cards, you can use items from your hand that you haven't used to activate companions, and you can use items that are below companions that you already used to activate companions. So it's really like an engine building game in which you're trying to collect companions that will use items that you will then need to complete more and more adventure cards. So then you would take all the adventure cards that satisfy the requirements and then discard those items. Now, some of these adventure cards will show you an X, which means you now have to retire a companion. You can never retire a leader. So now if you have completed an adventure card that shows an X, you have to retire 1 of your companions, which is fine because there's always going to be more companions available to get on the board. So you've done that now. And then finally, at the end of your turn, you will replenish the main board. As long as the spot is empty. You will not replenish spaces where there are meeples. So if there's a campfire, you're going to draw a new companion from the companion deck and place it there. If there's an empty spot without a campfire, you will draw an item from the item deck and place it there. So there's going to be these public quests at the top of the board as well. And on your turn, you can also during the adventure step of your turn, you'll either complete an adventure card or sign up for a public quest. And when you complete an adventure card, it can be one that you have previously reserved. However, if you're able to complete one that's showing at the top of the board, you should do that instead of the reserved one, because the reserved one you can complete at any time, basically. So you might want to get one at the top of the board before the other player gets to it. So public quests, let me just show you what a public quest will look like. So these are going to be placed at the top of the board randomly, and there's different letters. So you'll have one of each letter placed at the top of the board, and they are different quests that you are trying to achieve. So when they're placed at the top of the board, they're going to be placed like this. So you'll see that the different symbols they require. And of course, there's going to be the red ones here. So you'll place them, so you'll have 3 public quests that you are trying to achieve. Now, when you're doing a public quest, you don't have to achieve it right then and there. This is something that you will score points for at the end of the game. But what you're going to do, if you decide you want to, go for one of these public quests, you will place your quill token on the topmost space. And if you place it on the topmost space, that will earn you additional points at the end of the game. Here is the quest that will show you what you're going to gain points for at the end of the game. So again, as I mentioned on the main board, there was that one thing here that showed you how many cards or items will amount to how many points for these public quests. Now this one indicates that I need companions which require this activation symbol. So if I had a total of, say, 3 companions at the end of the game that required this activation symbol that were retired or in my party, I would earn 4 points. And if I was the first person to put my quill there, it would give me an additional 2. So that is how these public quest tiles work. You're not trying to actually turn in anything when you place a quill onto these, but you're trying to collect the thing necessary to get you the points at the end of the game, because those are points you will score at the end of the game. So again, on your turn, you're going to place a movement token, take the movement, optionally activate a companion or a leader, or collect a clover token, then optionally complete an adventure card or place a quill on a quest, and you only have 2 quills and you cannot place both quills on the same quest. And then finally, you will replenish the board. Now, clover token use, you can use 1 clover to convert an item card to any activation symbol or adventure symbol in order to activate your companions, or in order to complete these. Or you can spend 2 in order to convert a companion card to any type, or to draw an item card blindly from the deck and just add it to your hand. So that is essentially the game. So you're going to have 3 movement tokens total per game. So you're not going to end up using all 4 of your movements. And also the adventure cards, when you complete them, will give you a certain boost. You're going to now place it underneath your player board. So now you'll have some special ability or some kind of a boost, or maybe a discount on completing subsequent adventure cards. And they also give you points at the end of the game. So you definitely want to complete these adventure cards in order to now gain these boosts throughout the game. So it is very much an engine building game, but a simple, an engine building game with very simple mechanics of just simply moving, collecting something, optionally activating, optionally completing adventures, or, placing your tokens on quests, and so on. So each person is going to get 3 turns per round. At the end of the round, at the end of each person's turn, if there's an empty space on the adventure cards because someone completed an adventure card, you would also fill that up, as well as filling up the empty spaces on the main board, except for where there are meeples present. So the game takes place over 4 rounds, and then at the end of 4 rounds, you will add up your total points. So for end of game scoring, you will now add up all the points for, let's see, I will just go here. Each completed adventure card, because again, each completed adventure card has points on the bottom, so you will get those points. You'll get 1 victory point for every 3 remaining clover tokens. You will gain your public quest points. So if you collected whatever was needed for a specific public quest, you will gain those points. And and then whoever has the most points will win. And that is it, basically. It's a very, fun, easy to learn game, but still, it's got enough decision making in it that will keep you interested, enough strategy in it that will keep you interested. And there is a more difficult mode, which we did not play with yet. So you can add endurance journey cards, which will give you an advanced game of Pilgrims. So I haven't done that yet, but it will apparently make it more complex and add variety. So I'm really looking forward to playing with the journey cards at some point. So again, this was high on my Essen list, and I'm really glad I picked it up. I absolutely love it. I think it's a really great game, and I would highly recommend it. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then you should check it out. And the artwork is just so delightful. Absolutely love the unique art style in this game as well. But I think that this is a game that beginners will enjoy, as well as those more advanced gamers, because there is definitely engine building in this game. So yeah, so check out Pilgrims Curious Adventures if that sounds like something you're interested in. So let's move on. Let's talk about Viva Catrina. This is a 2025 game for 2 to 6 players, designed by Fred Boulay and Gregory Grard, and it's illustrated by Jeremy Fleury, and it's published by The Flying Games. And this is a copy that I purchased at Essen for full price. Now, this is a tile laying game with a Dia de los Muertos theme, and I really enjoyed it. I played a 5-player game of this. So depending on the player count, you're going to use one side of the board or the other. So the board looks like this. And so since I played a 5-player game of it, I used this side of the board, and you're going to fill all of these spaces with tiles from the bag. So each player is going, and then the top, you're going to have some special tiles placed here and here, which you'll be able to collect if you achieve them. And same with these balloons. There's going to be balloons of each color, with the top showing the most points and the bottom showing the least amount of points. So on your turn, you're going to select a tile that is at the end of one of the rows. So as more and more people are taking their turns, the tiles that you will be able to select will change, because the end of the row is obviously going to change. So, you know, it's going to get shorter and shorter, and that will determine which tiles you can take. So you can take any tile from an end of the row. So each person is going to start with a starting tile, and your starting tile is going to show both these paved paths, like these purplish ones. It's going to show some golden areas. It's going to show this flowery path, and it'll also show you a specific kind of stall that you start with, and you'll start with a butterfly. So when you are creating, adding tiles, you have to add it like completely adjacent to something that's already existing, and you do not need to match paths. However, it is obviously beneficial for you to do so, because you want certain paths leading back to your starting tile in order to score points for things, or in order to collect other things. So you definitely want to connect them if you can, like this. So now, before we go further, I will mention that, you know, if you place something like this, this path is still connected. Well, that's part of your starting tile. That's not a very good example. But you have these flower paths that go over your paved paths. And this part would still be connected to the starting tile going all the way there, even though this flower path is going over it. This is not cutting up this pathway. So that became a point of contention when we were playing, but it was 4 against 1. And, you know, the rule book clearly shows that this flower path is not breaking this paved path up. So this piece is still connecting back over here. So that's important to keep in mind. So basically, you're trying to get certain things on paths connecting back to your starting tile, and trying to collect other things that will give you more points. So at any point when on your turn, when you have 3 balloons of a certain color, you will take the top that is connecting back to your starting tile. You will then take the top balloon tile showing that color balloon. So if I was the first player who had 3 red balloons on my paved paths, because those appear on paved paths, connecting back to my starting tile, I would take this. And then if I end up getting 6 of the same, so 3 more, I would flip it over, and now it would be worth 10 points at the end of the game. If at any time you create a pedestal, you can take one of these, what are they called? There's a special name for them. Chimera tiles. So you have small chimera tiles and large ones, and they're all worth the same amount of points. They just show something different. So if I created a golden pedestal that could fit a small one, I would collect one of the small ones. If these run out, then you don't get to collect them. However, just be mindful that the thing you create in order to connect these chimeras has to be the exact same size as the chimera. You cannot create a larger area and then take a chimera with golden space left over. That is not allowed. It has to be the exact same size as the chimera tile that you are collecting. So you cannot have excess golden space in order to collect these chimera tiles. So that is very important to keep in mind. Stalls. There's going to be certain tiles that appear that have different stalls on them, and there are a total of 5 different stalls in this game. So those are they come up less frequently. Like, I think only one player managed to get like a good amount of points from stalls. So here you'll see a fruit stall. So each person starts the game with 1 stall on their starting tile. Anytime you collect a stall that is identical to one you already have in your village, and it does not need to be connected, you get to randomly draw a tile from the bag and add it to your village. However, for the end of the game, you want different stalls, a distinct number of, different number of, as many stalls as there are, as you can get different kinds in order to get the most amount of points. The more distinct stalls you have, the more distinct higher points you will get. So those you want different kinds of. At the end of the game, so basically, a round finishes when the board is empty of tiles, and then you will replenish for the next round. You will have as many rounds as there are the number of players. So in a 5-player game, we had 5 rounds. Then at the end of the game, you will score for all the different things. So end of game, each person will now have a village that you're going to score. You're going to get points for your balloon tokens. So if you only had the front showing, you would get the front amount of points. But if you had collected 6 balloons on a path connecting to the starting tile, then you would flip it over and get the higher number of points. And again, the people who collected these first would get more points than the later player. So for example, here's one that on the front showed 3 points, and then if you managed to flip it over, it showed 6 points. So this would have been lower in the stack. So the top one is always going to be 5, and the bottom one, I believe, is always going to be 2. So you'll get points for your balloons. Then let's see, what else do you gain points for? Altars. You will score points for your altars. So there are altars that appear throughout the game as well. And I believe each starting tiles do not start with an altar, I do not think. So let me see if I can find an altar to show you what those are. And altars do not need to be connected. Those can just appear anywhere in your village. If I could just find one. Oh my gosh. Come on. Let's find an altar here. I had an altar, but I just cannot. Oh, here's one. So this is an altar, and this will give you points for a certain amount of things at the end. So this one would give you 1 point per butterfly you had in your entire village. So if you have altars, you will score points for your altars. You will add up points for your chimeras that you collected by creating those golden pedestals. You will score points for your stalls. And again, the more amount of distinct stalls you have, the more amount of points you will get according to this chart. And then what else? You score points for butterflies. So butterflies have to connect back to your starting path in order to score points for butterflies. 1 point per butterfly. And then finally, you'll have visitors. And a lot of these paths will contain little people on them, and they are visitors. Like this one, for example, looks like a visitor. So you'll add up the number of visitors and you'll score points for visitors as well. Again, they have to connect back to your starting tile. And then whoever has the most amount of points will win. So that is the game. So it's just a tile drafting game in which you're trying to collect tiles, hopefully before others that have the things that you need on them, and you're just trying to score the most amount of points. It's not like something super innovative. It's just a fun, thematic Dia de los Muertos game with cool artwork, and just the theme of Dia de los Muertos. It's not like anything super innovative, but I still enjoyed my play of this. Of course, there is going to be hate drafting involved because, if it's your turn and you see that, oh, there's a tile that someone really wants that is at the end of one of the rows that you could take, but there's another tile you could take as well. You might just take the tile that someone really needs in order to prevent them from getting it and scoring something, which totally happened during our game. I'm not sure it happened intentionally, but, people kept on picking what I wanted. So it happened time and time again to me, because I was trying to get, you know, to 3 balloons of a certain color first in order to get the higher scoring balloon tile, but it did not happen. So I got like the second scoring balloon tile for one of the colors. I think I got the high scoring balloon tile for one of the colors, maybe. I can't remember. But yeah, that is Viva Catrina. So just a very simple tile placement game that can cause a bit of controversy when determining whether certain paths go over other paths. But the rulebook, I think, is very clear that the purple paved paths are not interrupted when a flower path goes over it like that. So just something to keep in mind, but maybe they should be more explicit about that in the rulebook, or at least on the forums or in their FAQ. So that is Viva Catrina, and if that sounds like something you're interested in, then you should check it out. So let's move on. Let's talk about Paddy. Paddy is a 2025 game for 2 to 4 players, designed by Alberto Camano, and the art is done by Tatiana Boyko and is published by Two Tomatoes Games. And this is a copy that I purchased at full price from Essen. Now, this is an abstract strategy game in which you are building up territories and placing down animals and waterfalls. So you are going to have a main board, and everyone is going to be playing onto the main board. So the main board looks like this, and it's split up into day and nighttime size, and you'll see the squares on the main board, which is important. And then right next to it, you will have a scoreboard because you are going to be scoring at the end of each round. So each player is going to start with 3 animal tokens, and 2 of these basically used for scoring and stuff, and then 2 waterfalls. So each person has 2 waterfalls that they have the ability to place down during the game. So you are going to start the game with a Paddy. So each person will start the game with 2 special ability cards in hand that you can use once per game if you want. So let me just find all the cards to show you. Okay, so here are some examples of special ability cards, and these you will be able to look at the rulebook to determine what they mean. So these are just some examples of special ability cards, and each person will have 2 and that you can use throughout the game, just once per game. Each person has a little player aid. I wouldn't say it's the most helpful player aid, but there you go. And on the back side, okay, and then there's going to be these cards. So you're going to have these Paddy cards, which look like this. So the back of the Paddy cards look like this. They show you all the different shapes that are available. So on the reverse side is going to show you one of the shapes that you will then be collecting and placing down on your turn. So those are the 3 different shapes that are available. And then you are going to have these nighttime and daytime cards. So they look like this on the back side, and on the front they will show you where you have to place your tile. So either in daytime or nighttime. So you're going to start the game with 2 of each in hand. So I think you start the game with 2 day and night cards and 2 Paddy cards in hand, and your 2 special abilities that you will be able to use once each throughout the game if you want. So on your turn, you're going to play a Paddy card and a day and night card together, and that will determine where you are placing your piece. Then optionally, after you do that, you can place an animal. So the game is played over 4 cycles, and each cycle consists of 3 phases, so 4 rounds basically. So you have the sowing phase, where you would draw cards and determine turn order, and turn order is the person with the highest points currently will go first. And obviously in the first cycle you're just going to ignore that, and there will be another way to determine who goes first, and that's the person who most recently ate rice. So after sowing phase, you will draw cards, determine turn order, then you have the growing phase, and then in turn order you will take turns to play cards, creating and populating terraces of rice paddies on the board. Then you have the harvest phase, where you calculate points. So during the growing phase is when you will play 1 Paddy card with 1 day and night card and place the tile from your hand. And there of course are rules following that you need to follow, which will show you how you can place the tiles. You cannot like place a tile over another tile that would create a gap underneath it, obviously. You know, you have to place tiles that go on their side of the board. So at least one of the plots of the place tile must be in the half of the board corresponding to the chosen day and night card. You cannot place tiles that would come off of the board, obviously. You cannot place tiles on top of plots occupied by other players' animals, unless you have a special card that maybe lets you remove someone's animal. You can place the tile on top of plots occupied by your animals, so you would just remove your animal and then place a new tile. You cannot place the tile on a plot with a waterfall, nor adjacent and level to a plot edge that has a waterfall. And then you cannot place a tile in such a way that 2 or more terraces containing a waterfall are joined together in the same terrace, like here, for example. So you would not be able to put that small square there, which would join those 2 waterfalls. Okay, so then after you place your Paddy tile, then you can place an animal entirely within the plots, never on their sides. And it comes from your reserve, or you can move an animal that was previously placed by you and place it, and it has to go onto the tile that you just placed. And you're placing animals because you're trying to gain points, and they will give you points. Then you can optionally add a waterfall. So you can only place a waterfall on the edge of any one plot of your choice, but again, it can the chosen edge cannot have an adjacent plot at the same level. The plot must be empty. It cannot contain a waterfall or animals, and it must be at level 4 or higher. And the terrace where you place the waterfall cannot already contain a waterfall. And then you would draw 1 Paddy card and 1 day and night card, and then the turn would go to the next player. So you're going to play until all the draw decks are empty and all the players have played all of their cards. Then you have the harvesting phase where you collect points. So now you will look at terrace profiles. So on each terrace, and a terrace is like a level of, that is uninterrupted by another higher level. So a level can be, many squares big. It can be a small number of squares. That would be a terrace. So on each terrace where you have the majority, you multiply the number of, and majority means by your animals present, you multiply the number of visible plots by their height level and receive that number of points. Then you have terrace irrigation. Now on each terrace where you have the majority and which does not contain a waterfall, multiply the number of waterfalls flowing towards it by 10 and receive that number of points. So you can look at these examples to see how things score. Pause if necessary. And then finally, highest terrace. If you have the majority on a terrace that is at the highest level, you receive 5 points. In the same harvesting phase, several players can score the highest terrace. However, the same player cannot score the highest terrace more than once in the same harvesting phase. Then once you've scored all 3 categories, the cycle ends and you start the next cycle with, again, the sowing phase where you, shuffle all the cards, deal out new cards, determine first player order, and you do it all again. You're going to do this 4 times. This game turned out to be way more strategic than meets the eye. Like, as you really get into it, and I would definitely like to play it again because I really sucked at it the first time, but I feel like this is a game that as you play, get further into gameplay, you really see how you can screw over other players, how you can split up their terraces. Like, one of the players, he created this terrace of just level 1 tiles, whereas me and the other player were trying to get higher and higher and add waterfalls and this and that. But this one player was just like basically staying at level 1 and creating this huge terrace of level 1 tiles that were uninterrupted, giving him a lot of points during the harvesting phase for that terrace because he had the majority on that terrace with the most animals on that level. Whereas me and the other player were trying to get higher and higher and score for higher level terraces. But the higher ones are harder to gain more points for because you're going to have to keep on building up, adjacent to higher levels in order to make them larger and score more points if you want to place your animals on those higher levels. So it is quite a strategic, competitive game, definitely way more than I thought it was going to be, and I really enjoyed my play of it. So if you enjoy abstract strategy games, highly recommend Paddy. It's a really good one. I, was very pleasantly surprised by this game. So I'm really glad I picked it up. I believe that this was a last day of Essen purchase for me as well. It was one that I was kind of debating on, but I'm really glad I picked this one up. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then you should definitely check it out. So let's move on. Let's talk about the White Castle Duel. This is a 2025 game for 2 players designed by Isra C. and Shay S. And the art is done by Joan Gardier and is published by Devere Games. And this is a review copy which I received from Devere. So this was one of their Essen releases. I got to play it after Essen, though I received it before Essen, and I absolutely love this game. So of course this is for 2 players. So it's going to, be a little bit similar from what I can remember to the White Castle, but of course it is its own game, just completely different. So I'm not going to go into great detail about this one because, of how long this video is already, but you will have this one main board, and on this main board you're going to be placing out a bunch of things. But the main thing about this game is that each player is going to have this board, and this shows the number of seals, Daimo seals, and coins you can hold at any one time. Here are your resource trackers like food, iron, and pearl, and you're going to be placing cards on this side of the board and cards on this side of the board as well. So each person is going to start with 2 tokens of each color. So these represent the different buildings that you will see on the board, and each person will start with 2 orange, 2 black, and 2 cream colored ones. So these you're going to place onto your board in their designated areas on top of each other like that. So again, each person starts with 2 of each color. And on your turn, basically what you're going to be doing is removing one of those tokens from your board and placing it onto an activation spot. And there's going to be, I'm going to post pictures, but the pictures are not very good, and I'll explain why during the FlagCon section and Cat Fundraiser section, but there's going to be various tiles on this board, and you will be placing it onto a tile that is not of the same color. So I cannot place a white one on top of a tile in an activation spot showing the white one. So for example, if this was on the board, I could not place my white one on top of this because they are the same color. So I would have to place this on top of a different color. And once you place it, you then activate on your own board the color that was underneath where you placed your token. So if I placed my orange on the white, I would now look at the white cards on my board, which is over, here, and I would gain all the benefits of the cards that I have over here. And you're going to be collecting more and more cards throughout the game. So like here, I would gain a Mother of Pearl resource and so on. So you would be activating the color that you are covering when you place one of your activation tokens. So you're just going up different tracks in this game by placing your tokens and collecting a variety of things. There are different tracks to go up on this main board as well. You are going up like the palace. There's going to be a way for you to get up higher and higher on the palace. You're going to be placing out like warriors over here. You're going to be placing people into the gardens over here. You're just going to be doing a variety of actions by placing your activation tokens and triggering different abilities and gaining different resources. And of course, every game is going to be different because where the tiles and activation tiles and different abilities are placed on the main board is going to be different in every game. Like for example, let me just show you, like here are just examples of some of the tiles that would be placed onto the main board. So, each game is just going to be different because you're not using all of these. These are all just going to be placed into different sections on the board. Same with these, so there's going to be a lot of variety in this board. These tiles will be placed randomly as well, and they will make each game a little bit different, and these are things that you're going to be advancing on and gaining certain things as you're advancing on them. So, a lot of variability in this game. So the first half of the game, you're placing out these activation tokens, all of them, and gaining the various things based on where you placed it and the things that are adjacent to the activation tile where you placed it. So you're always going to have like at least 2 things that you're doing when you are placing out one of your activation tile tokens. Then, and you're building up your main board. You're going to be collecting more and more of these cards. It's going to be an engine building game, and you're going to be collecting more of these cards that go on this side and gaining things from those and getting, trying to accumulate points for the end of the game. Then in the second half of the game, now you're not placing out the activation tokens, now you're taking them back. So when you take back an activation token, it does not have to be, you know, 2 whites, 2 blacks, and 2 oranges like you had at the start of the game. So when you're taking them back, you can take back any token you want that is at the top of one of the activation tiles, and then you will activate the color of the token you took. And again, you'll activate the 2 things that are next to it on the board, which will again give you resources, cards, ability to like place your people in certain areas, soldiers in certain areas, advance on various tracks, and so on. So in the second half of the game, you're taking tokens and reactivating certain things and then placing them onto your board. So at the end of the game, you know, one person might have 3 orange tokens, 1 black, like, you know, whatever. So each person will determine which token they want to take. And again, you're activating the color of the token you took, not what's underneath it this time. So that is essentially the game. And then at the end of the game, you're going to be collecting points from a variety of things. So throughout the game, you would have been collecting cards like this, and there's an ability to flip these cards over in order to gain even more points. So you're going to be adding up like these flag tokens that you see, and it'll show you how many are on the reverse side if you flip it over. So you know that will be really something really good to give you points. You'll be collecting these kinds of symbols like the swords and like the kabutus and stuff. That's going to give you points. They're multipliers, so you need to make sure you have like soldiers on a certain area of the board in order to get points for those. You're going to be collecting different kinds of origami, but if you do that, you need both kinds because again, they're multipliers. And if you only have one kind, you're not going to score points. So for the origami, you also want the clear kind, which I cannot find right now. Weird, I cannot find any right now, but there's different kinds of origami. So if you're trying to get points from origami, you want both kinds because those are going to be multiplied. So yeah, it's just a game in which you're going to be constantly looking at what you have, what you hope to get, you know, in order to go up different tracks, how, you know, to score the most points and so on. It's a really good game. And if you enjoyed Isra and Shay's The White Castle, the regular game, I think you would really love this. Like this is a really good 2-player game. You know, you only have a certain number of turns in each round, very tight game, but you feel like you're accomplishing a lot and you're just really strategizing and how to get the most out of your turns. Of course, the other player might take the activation token that you wanted in the second round when you're removing those and, you know, kind of screw you over, and then you have to re-strategize. I absolutely love this game. It is a very, very good game, and I highly recommend it if you're looking for a very strategic, really good 2-player game that plays in a relatively short amount of time. As long as you get through the rules and you start playing, it'll be pretty easy and you'll know what you're doing. Like there's just a lot of little things to keep track of, you know, make sure that you're activating everything that you can activate, gaining all the things that you can gain, because there's going to be a lot of tracks and there's going to be comboing going on. But I really love that about this game. Like I love that a 2-player game can have so much game in it. It is very good and I highly recommend it. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, then you should check out the White Castle Duel. So let's move on. Due to the length of this video, I'm going to skip the other games for now and hopefully cover them in the next video, but some other games I played are Tokaido Duo, I played Echoes of Time, I played Wispwood, and I will just mention this game I'm not going to spend a lot of time on in the next video, and in fact I'm going to try and sell it at PAX Unplugged if I can. That is The Fortunes of Scoundrel Bay, which I absolutely hated. So I know hate is a very strong word. Just really did not like this game. Played a 4-player game of this at FlagCon. It took forever. I was just kind of miserable throughout the whole thing. I just really, really did not like this game. It was very tedious. This is a game I paid full price for. This was a last minute buy at Essen. This was a FOMO purchase. A huge regret purchase. Really, really regret buying this. But yeah, did not enjoy this at all. I know that one of the players, the one who actually kind of put this game on my radar when I was at Essen, he enjoyed it. I did not enjoy this. Another player did not enjoy this. So again, just very long, tedious game. Just do not ever want to play it again. So I'm not going to even talk about how it plays really. And who knows, if I'm lucky, I'll have sold it and I won't even have it to show you in the next video. But you know, there's people who are going to love this game. I just absolutely did not. And it just was very long and very tedious in my opinion. And there's definitely going to be pirate games that I enjoy way more than that one. So yeah, so I played that, and again, I mentioned Echoes of Time and Wispwood, and I think there's probably some others that I'm forgetting to mention, but this video is too long right now, so I'm just gonna move on and hopefully talk about those other games in another video sometime, because I really enjoyed Echoes of Time, but you know, there's other content creators who I'm sure have covered that, as well as Wispwood and Tokaido Duo, which is a review copy that I received from Stonemaier Games recently. So let's just move on to the next section. So in terms of games I'm backing, I don't think I'm backing anything right now. I did receive a few new arrivals, but due to the length of this video, I'm not going to show them in this video. Maybe I'll show them in the next video. But I received my pledges of Gingham and Gazebo from Bitewing Games, and I received my deluxe all-in edition of Tend, which is a game up here. Actually, that's the prototype copy, the pre-production copy that I used to cover for Kickstarter. So I received my deluxe all-in edition of Tend, which is a huge box, but a very stunning box. It's got like holographic, like spot gloss right on the cover. It's beautiful, but it's humongous and it weighs a ton. So I'm not going to show all of those today, and I don't think I'm currently backing anything on Kickstarter. I think the stuff that I was backing ended, like I was backing like the new Obsession stuff. And I really don't think I'm backing anything else, not that I can think of. So let's just move on. So let's just talk quickly about FlagCon. FlagCon was amazing. This year, as I had mentioned before, I was not on the planning committee, but my badge did say VIP on it. And I think that's because I'm a founding member of FlagCon. And I was on the planning committee for the first 2 years of the convention. So that was very cool. So VIP badge. And they even had a really nice program. And even though it took place after Halloween, originally it was supposed to be during Halloween weekend. So that's why they still stuck with the Halloween theme, but just a really nice program, and it was amazing this year. Like this year, so they're going to be in the downtown conference center every year, and this year we had the whole conference center, so both floors, all the rooms. It was just so nice. It felt like a really like proper convention that has really arrived. Like it was just amazing. So I ran the fundraiser for Rock Cats at the convention, and Brian was a huge help. So Brian donated a lot of used games to the fundraiser as well. There were publishers who donated new games after I contacted them. So very generous of them. You know, maybe I'll list all the publishers who donated games here. You know, some only donated one game, but then there were very generous publishers like DeVere or IV Studio or Garfield Games who donated multiple games. And Obsession, you know, Dan Halligan donated the all-in Obsession, which was amazing. Dronda Games donated 6 copies of a game, which was very helpful. So, you know, some publishers were a little bit more generous than others, but all of them very generous to donate anything at all. So really appreciate that, because people really like getting new games. Like they're very excited at the opportunity to win something that is brand new in Shrink. One of my friends, she had won a copy of Tend, the all-in deluxe edition of Tend from IV Studio, and she donated her whole copy to the fundraiser. Very generous of her. So thank you, Andrea, for that, because that was a very highly sought after prize, and the first ticket I drew, they chose that as their prize. So yeah, so I did not get to FlagCon until late on Friday because work kept me really busy during Friday. So I did a Blood on the Clock Tower on Friday with some of my friends, which was really fun. This was the first time, so I'm typically not a fan of Blood on the Clock Tower, but I really enjoyed this play of it because finally I was on the bad team and I was the imp, like the head bad guy. And I feel like I did really well. It came down to me and then one other person on my team, a minion, and then one good person, but the good person I believe was the virgin or something like that. So at the end it became very obvious that I was the imp and I got killed, but oh my god, it was a really good game and I loved being the imp the entire time. It was just so much fun to be the imp. And yeah, so I really enjoyed this play of Blood on the Clock Tower. And then so that's what I did Friday. Didn't do anything else, then just went out to dinner with my friends. Then the next day I was at the table all day for the raffle selling tickets, and so I had some games, not all of them obviously, displayed on the table, and people were purchasing raffle tickets, and then we had the raffle at the end of the day and gave away a lot of games. So the raffle was all 3 days. So on Friday and Sunday, Brian was in charge of the raffle, and on those 2 days it was mostly used games that were given away, though on Sunday Brian did have some new games as well to give away. Saturday was the day where all the new games from the publishers that were donated, and then a bunch of used games by me as well, those were raffled off all on Saturday. Saturday. But combined all 3 days, I raised $1,765 for Rock Cats, which is amazing. I was hoping to raise $2,000, so a little bit short of my goal, but Rock Cats is very grateful for the amount that I raised. And Brian said that we can make this an annual thing. So very excited about that I will get to raise money for Rock Cats every year at FlagCon. So I'm hoping that the publishers that were generous enough to donate games this year will donate games every year. I really hope so. So yeah, so that is just a kind of quick update on FlagCon. And then Sunday, since I spent the whole day on Saturday doing the raffle, just sitting at the table, though a friend of mine kept me company at the table. So that's where we were playing a lot of the 2-player games that we were playing. So behind like all the raffle stuff, like the poster board and everything else, we were playing games in this like very narrow area. So that's where we played Tokaido Duel, we played the White Castle Duel, we played a game of Pop Art, which is a game I covered for its Kickstarter from R2I Games, Road to Infamy Games. And that's a game I forgot to talk about because I don't have it anymore. I had to send that on back to the publisher. And I played 2 games of Pop Art though, and I really enjoy that game. I really like it. And I think that's currently on Kickstarter right now, in fact. And then we also played a game of Dreamscape. So those were the games I played on Saturday. And then Sunday I played Paddy, Paint the Roses, and The Fortunes of Scoundrel Bay, which was the most miserable experience for me. And that took a minimum of 4 hours, including the rules and setup. So yeah, so that is what I did on Sunday, but I'm so excited already for next year's FlagCon. Like again, you know, they've really filled out the space. There were about 700 attendees this year. Brian did such an amazing job. I just really loved FlagCon this year. I think it's really grown into a beautiful, nice convention, and highly recommend people to attend because Ithaca is just amazing with so many restaurants. And this is right in downtown Ithaca. You have so many amazing places within walking distance. Just absolutely love it. Like, it's a really great local convention. So that is my FlagCon update. So let's move on. So book club, we have not done book club in a very, very long time, and that is totally my fault. But I think we were supposed to read the prologue and the first 2 chapters of the Dollar Gut Dream Making District for this fiction book club. And I know it's been postponed many, many times, but I finally got around to reading the prologue and the first 2 chapters. I think that's what we were supposed to read. And yeah, it's just interesting. So, you know, this is a sequel to the Dream Making department store, the Dollar Gut Dream Making department store, which I really loved, and I think Sandra, you loved it too. So far, you know, we see that Penny you know, was getting her annual performance review. She was getting a raise, and then she got a pass to go to the Dream Making District. And then we see like what's going on at the Dream Making District, you know, all the different buildings, the way that they're described. It sounds really awesome. I would love it if these were made into movies. Like, oh my God, that would make me so happy. So now we see them going to the complaints department, and Penny gets assigned with investigating this one complaint that was received. And, you know, we don't learn much about it in chapters 1 and 2 because we've just gotten into the complaint, but my guess is that they're nightmares. Like, I'm guessing that this book is going to be about nightmares instead of dreams. I don't know if I'm just really off the mark here, but I think that it's having to do something with nightmares. So I'm really curious where it's going to go. I'm really excited about it. I still love the way, like, how the way the author describes things makes me think about my own dreams and dreams that I've actually had. Like, I just really love how it really ties into the dreams that we as humans in real life have. So just very, very cool. Yeah, so I'm just really excited to get further into this book because so far I'm really enjoying it, and even though we've only read a little bit. So let me know what you think so far, and let me know what you think the whole complaint is about. Do you think it's about nightmares, or do you think it's something else? Like, am I totally off the mark here? I feel like Sandra's usually on point with her analyses of things, whereas I'm usually off the mark. So I would be very curious to see what you think, Sandra. So I think for next time, let's just read 1 chapter. And I know I won't be able to shoot a video until like 2 weeks from now because PAX Unplugged is next weekend. But I think let's just read chapter 3, because then maybe we can talk about each chapter in a little bit more detail. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments whether you would like to read just 1 chapter for next time or 2. So let me know if you want to read just chapter 3 or chapters 3 and 4, and I'll just go along with what you would like like to do. So that is this week's fiction book club, which again is the Dollar Gut Dream Making District, and I highly recommend this. It's such a fun read, especially if you're someone like me who has really, really vivid dreams every night. It's so much fun to read a book about dreams where they're selling dreams in a department store and dreams that you can actually relate to. Like, very cool. Although I can't relate to ever being an animal. Like, that's something I cannot relate to. Like that whale dream where someone was a whale or an orca or something. Never had a dream where I was an animal. Let me know if you have, because that's something I cannot relate to at all. So yeah, so let me know how many chapters you'd like to read for next time in the comments below. So let's move on. So for nonfiction book club, we are very behind, and I know that that is entirely my fault, but we were supposed to read the first half of chapter 8 of Iran, A Modern History by Abbas Amanat, and chapter 8 has to do with Reza Shah and the Pahlavi Order, 1925 to 1941. And so we were supposed to read up to page 472, the break on 472. So we basically learn that, you know, he has now become the Shah, and you see at the beginning of his, monarchy, like how we're already starting to see signs of him being this like authoritarian kind of dictator that people are going to be afraid of. And, you know, and how the Shah is very mistrustful of people. So, you know, we saw these people who were like closest to him in the government, and, you know, like several of them were killed, like they were imprisoned and killed. And then one of them committed suicide for fear of the paranoid Reza Shah and his perceptions of Davar's misconduct. So like here you have all these people who helped him to get to power and are in positions of power in the government who are being killed by him and are afraid of him. So we're seeing a lot of that, and, you know, I'm going to try to be as fair as possible. I think you all know that I'm not a fan of the monarchy, but I'm also not a fan of the Islamic government either. So I want to try to be as fair as possible and try to, you know, limit my own personal biases, but of course I'm going to have biases. So I'm very anti-monarchy for Iran, so I'm sure that that's going to come through in me discussing this book. So yeah, so, you know, it says that all 4 victims fell to Reza Shah's regime denoted something more than Reza Shah's paranoid state of mind, or a sense of inferiority toward men of higher class and superior education. Men whom, despite their genuine show of loyalty to him, the new Shah still viewed as a liability and potential threat. So yeah, so we see that happening in the beginning. Yeah. So, you know, just people being imprisoned, spied on, kept under house arrest, put on trial, imprisoned on false charges, or quietly eliminated. Like, yeah, and that's something that happened throughout his entire reign. And that's why a lot of people don't support the monarchy, because monarchies like this are authoritarian. They're like, you know, where's the democracy here? You know, there is no democracy. Then we learn about the railroad and modern infrastructure developing in Iran, which is very good. So, you know, that's one of the good things that happened during this part of his reign. You know, adding this railroad, you see the development of roads, you see the motor car and how that helps Iran become more modern. You know, you see all these roads developing and connecting different parts of Iran. So that's all very well and good. Then we get to the economy and industry. So you see that the population of Iran is increasing. You know, the infant mortality rate has gone down, and you also see that there's fewer outbreaks of cholera and typhus. So that's why there's, you know, a greater population. There's a little bit of a population boom. You see cities growing larger and so on. You know, this talks about the economy in the cities as opposed to the countryside, and in the countryside people were still struggling, and you can see that Reza Shah did not really care much about the countryside, and that's what I really took away from this economy section, was that he was more concerned with the cities and less concerned with the countryside, and the tribes and the, you know, people, the country people were suffering, you know. We, you know, learned a little bit about the carpet industry and how he tried to kind of keep the carpet industry as something that would bring in a lot of money, but then as, you know, that grew, as the carpet industry grew, the quality decreased. And that's something that you see in so many industries around the world, that as the industries grow, the quality will decrease, because then you go from having these artisans to having these mass big production facilities. But also I will say that the carpet industry relied on women and children working and creating these carpets because they have smaller, more delicate fingers. And obviously we are opposed, or should be opposed, to child labor. So that is something. So I would not be opposed to the quality of rugs decreasing if it meant that children were no longer being employed. Though there are, of course, people who are going to say, but children, maybe they wanted their children employed and earning wages, but they weren't earning good wages. So, you know, that's a whole debate that could be had on its own, and I'm not going to get into that. You know, so we see a lot of that. You know, we see how, you know, he's developed a banking system in Iran and all of that. You know, and just, you know, there's some talk about the economy. I'm not really an economist, and, you know, it's not really my cup of tea. Getting into like all the details about economy, that's not really something that I understand very well either. Though my mother has a master's degree in economics, so maybe I should talk to her about it. But yeah, it says here that the early Pahlavi state aimed for self-sufficiency. You know, it says the growth of the carpet industry transformed the Iranian textile industry and quickly replaced the declining silk and cotton handlooms. But again, we already talked about the women and children being the labor force, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Then we get into education. So education was really interesting to me. So I will say that today there are more highly educated, university educated women in Iran than there are men. But as he's forming these modern education systems, that's not the case. Like, it's still mostly men and not women. But we see, you know, him trying to grow the public education system, and you see people going to European cities like Paris in order to be educated. You see people going to Germany to be educated. So yeah, so it was interesting. There was one quote here that I thought was interesting. So it says, whereas most French graduates who came to dominate Iranian higher education remained loyal to the post-World War II nationalist cause, the Iranian graduates of the German system often tilted towards the left and were influential in shaping of the Tudeh Party and other independent socialist tendencies. So very interesting, like where you get educated will shape your, you know, frame of mind and the kinds of things that you hope to see in the country. Very interesting. You know, we saw that during this whole education system that he's really trying to do away with the Shia identity of the country. Like, we've seen that throughout this whole chapter, in fact, that, you know, if there's a group of people who are probably discontent with the Shah, it's the religious groups, right? It's the Shia groups. And you see the Shah trying to do away with the Shia identity. And you see that, you know, with him trying to focus more on the Persian identity. And that's something today that we see between the two groups, the rival groups in Iran, those who support the current government, or maybe don't support the current government, but don't support the monarchy. Like, you see like people who, you know, are religious and view the Shia identity as very much as a part of Iranian identity, whereas the others, you know, want to go back to ancient Persian times and eliminate any Arab influences on Iran. They view Arabs as colonizers, and you know, that's a whole other debate that can be had in itself as well, because modern day colonization is not the same as when Islam was expanding or other religions were expanding. Modern day colonization is not the same as when religions were expanding back then, and especially Islam, because Islam, and I know that it might seem like I'm biased, but if you study ancient history, like history, old Islamic history, and when Islam was spreading, there were very specific rules that they had to abide by, and it's not colonization in the way that we view colonization today. But today, there are going to be monarchists who say that it was colonization, and there's going to be Zionists who claim that, you know, Islam colonized the world. But in fact, if you go to academic scholars, they're going to say that no, that was not colonization. But the whole section on education here was very interesting, I thought, and, you know, you see remnants of it today. You see how, you know, remnants of it today in people's mindsets of those who left Iran after the 1979 revolution, who very much want to maintain a Persian identity, don't want to use any words that have Arabic roots, want to only use words with Persian roots, you know, don't want to call the language Farsi, want to call it Persian. You know, there's so many little you know, minute things that, you know, people will differentiate between in order to keep it, you know, Persian, not Iranian, and so on. So you see that happening during the whole education system as that's being reshaped here by Reza Pahlavi, and it's just interesting to learn about it. you know, you see here that he was trying to downplay Iran's regional and ethnic diversity, and he was trying to make it like one Persian identity, you know, and it says here that conspicuously left out of this nation building project, except for the bare minimum, was Iran's Islamic and more specifically its Shia identity. Yeah, so very just interesting. It's interesting to learn about this. You know, it's interesting to see how the Baha'is and the Zoroastrians are still involved, or what's being taken away from them, and so on. So even at this time, we saw that things were being taken away from them, whereas now the monarchy is claiming to be very pro, you know, minority is claiming to be pro-Baha'i, pro-Zoroastrian, and all of this. But when Reza Shah first took over, you could see that he was still stripping away rights from the religious minorities as well here. So just interesting to learn all of this, I think. So let me know what you found most interesting in the first half of chapter 8. And for next time, let's just finish off chapter 8. So I know that that was a very brief overview of the chapter, but if you think I if you disagree with me, please leave that in the comments below. Like I said, I come from, you know, I'm going to have a biased perspective on this no matter how neutral I try to remain. It's just going to happen. As someone who considers herself to be Shia, a devout Shia, but a devout Shia who does not agree with what the government is doing and how the government treats its people, does not agree with, you know, a lot of the laws that are in place in Iran, but at the same time is very anti-monarchy, I'm going to have my own biases. So let me know in the comments below what you think of all of this. What was the most interesting thing to you? What stuck out the most? To me, I see so many parallels between what Reza Pahlavi was doing and what Trump is doing today. Like the authoritarianism, the fascism that we see in today's country. Like when we started to see that at the beginning of chapter 8, like immediately my mind went to what is happening in this country right now. So you will see parallels in fascism and authoritarianism all around the world. Like you'll see similarities, whether it's in the Middle East or, you know, in the Middle East, of course, is a very Eurocentric term, you know, so people in the Middle East, a lot of them don't like to call it the Middle East, you know, but this would be technically like Central Eurasia. I still refer to it as the Middle East, and maybe I should stop doing that. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And for next time, finish off chapter 8. So let's move on. So it's been a long time since I've done a rant of the week, and so much has happened since my last rant of the week. So I guess I want to go back to, let's go back to Eric Lang, and he made a tweet back on November 1st, and rather a tweet on Blue Sky, so not on Twitter. And he said, people of color can be racist, women can be sexist, gay people can be homophobic, trans people can be transphobic, you owe bigots and grifters nothing. Regarding Brianna Wu's bullshit apology to trans people, actions matter so much than words. And then he responded to this one person in the board game industry, Tiffany Lay, who is a trans woman, and he responded to her saying, as someone who gave her a ridiculous amount of charity over the years, I agree with Caitlin. She's proven Brianna Wu has proven time and time again to just be in it for the fight, not progress. No one needs allies like this. So of course I called him out on this because Brianna Wu for years has been a raging Islamophobic piece of shit. Okay, so she is extremely Zionist. She is not Jewish. She is extremely Zionist though, and she's been posting Islamophobic, Muslim hating, Arab hating shit for years now. And yet Eric Lang has been giving her charity, like, you know, trying to let her pass. Like, why? Like, have you just been completely ignoring all the Islamophobic and pro-Zionist, pro-Israeli, pro-genocide shit that she's been saying? As soon as you saw that shit, you shouldn't have been giving her any charity for anything whatsoever, even her trans views. Like, she's a trans woman, but as soon as you saw her posting all this hateful rhetoric and encouraging a genocide, you should not have been giving her any charity about anything, because that's not the kind of person you should be paying attention to at all or caring about at fucking all. Like, it's just so fucking infuriating. And I've said time and time again, if you just, you know, flip the identities of people, then Eric Lang would have been in agreement. He'd be like, yeah, you should ignore that. Like, suppose Brianna Wu, instead of being completely Islamophobic, was completely anti-Semitic. Now here's this trans woman being completely anti-Semitic. Do you think then that Eric Lang would have been giving her, you know, her trans views some charity, he would have just completely disregarded anything she had to say. Because repeatedly we've seen Eric Lang say that you should ignore Nazis, you should just not associate with Nazis, you should not listen to anything Nazis have to say. Yet he gave Brianna Wu charity and, you know, was charitable in you know, his interpretation of her tweets or whatever. Complete, utter bullshit. So of course I called him out on this. And then after calling him out on this, he made a post on like Facebook or Blue Sky saying something like, oh, like there's going to be, oh yeah, he said, social media survival tips. So this is after I called him out. He said, stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Well, first of all, Eric has never explained himself. Like anytime I've ever called him out on a shitty take, he's never once fucking explained himself, which I really fucking think he needs to do. Like other people are expected to explain themselves. Why not Eric fucking Lang? Why is he never expected to explain his shitty takes that he has time and time again? Like, you know, I think I've said it before and I'm gonna say it again. If Eric Lang has no haters left, that means I'm dead. Like, this guy infuriates me to no end. He is the most arrogant but ignorant in many topics person, and when you combine those two, it's disastrous. If you are ignorant about certain things, just keep your mouth fucking shut. But, you know, as soon as he said that he gave Brianna Wu charity, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you gave this Islamophobic bigot charity? Like, if you've seen her tweets about trans stuff, you've surely seen her tweets that are Muslim hating, that encourage the genocide, that are Arab hating. You should have seen all of those because she posts those fucking constantly. She's been posting those since the genocide started. So yeah, so fuck Eric Lang for giving Brianna charity over the years when she didn't fucking deserve any. Like, there are plenty of trans people you can, you know, look to as being leaders, you know, in the trans space. Definitely not fucking Brianna Wu ever. So yeah, so that just really fucking pissed me off. Then we came up to the Zoran election, and I'm so happy that Zoran won, of course, like that goes, you know, without saying. So again, you know, we share a similar background. We are both Shia. He, of course, is Khoja, though. That means that he is of Indian origin, but he was born and raised in Africa. That is what you call people who are Shia of Indian origin. They are called Khoja. So he is a Khoja, which I am not. I am a descendant of Prophet Muhammad on both sides of my family, but we are both Shia Muslim. And I've been to the mosque in Queens that he's gone to several times. So like my hope is that maybe someday I can go there and meet him. That would be super duper cool. So anyway, so I of course posted about him winning the election on my Facebook profile. And then someone who at the time I had 145 mutuals with, I'm gonna just post his picture here, even though he's not a publisher. Like typically I've said, I will not call out people if they're not publishers, if they're not designers, if they're just regular board gamers in the industry. Like I'll typically not name them and shame them because they're just regular people who are just complete assholes. But I'm gonna name and shame this one because I have too many fucking mutuals with this asshole. And he basically told me to get out of my country. And then when I looked at his profile, he's just some crypto bro who's like literally not contributed anything to society. And I'm like, I'm someone who's contributed way more to this country than you fucking have. So like, why should I get out? I was born here. And if you were born here too, then I'm just as American as you are. Like we're both fucking just as the same amount of American. And unless you have Native American blood in you, you're not more American than I am. So anyone who is Native American can definitely claim that they are more American than anyone else because, you know, the way their land was taken over, the way America was colonized, like, you know, all of that is horrendous. Then he comes back and says, oh, I am Native American. I was like, bullshit. Like, and everyone who was reading this was like, bullshit. Like, there are white people who think that by being white and in the US, they're Native American. And I'm pretty sure that that's what this guy was doing. Like, there is like literally, there was no indication anywhere that he has any real Native American blood in him. But he was just posting the most stupid things ever on my Facebook and my post about Zoran winning. So then finally I unfriended him. I didn't block him, but you know, only like 3 people unfriended him after seeing all the shit he was posting at me. Like, get out of my country, like you're not American and blah, blah, blah. I was like, God, like, and there's still 139 mutuals I have with this asshole. Yeah, so it's like, why are people choosing to remain friends with people who literally contribute nothing to society, nothing of value? So that just really, really pisses me off, of course. Yeah. What else? Um, yeah, Eric Lang. So speaking about Zoran, so he wrote, Zoran Mamdani is an exceptional political operator with an exceptional team, fighting and winning against exceptional odds. He or someone like him will be president someday. Zoran cannot become president. He was not born in the US. Be radically optimistic. Change what you can in the world for the better. And I know I shit on Eric all the time, but he just makes it so fucking easy. And I just want to go back to election season when he was not encouraging people to look at the exceptional candidates or, you know, vote third party. He was instead encouraging everyone to vote for a genocidal bitch and keep the status quo and not fight for change, not for, you know, not be radically optimistic. He was telling people to just keep things, you know, vote for the Democratic Party that was supporting the genocide. Like, no. So I just feel like, you know, he's just backtracking on things that he said before, and it just pisses me off. It just pisses me off that, you know, now he's like all about Zoran Mamdani, when back during election season for presidential election, he probably would have been like, no, we need to vote for the status quo, and that's how you're gonna make change slowly but surely, blah, 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 blah. But Zoran has shown us that, you know, people are sick of, you know, Democrats who don't fucking do anything. People want to see radical change. They want to see people who are very, you know, voicing very loudly what they do and do not agree with, and so on. And I want to mention that Zoran is an anti-Zionist, which again, Eric Lang to this day has never fucking condemned the genocide, and he still supports Zionists in the industry, like Helena Kappel. So here we have a post where Eric is talking about, you know, how he won't be at PAX and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And Helena Kappel is talking about how much she misses her dear friend, Helena Kappel, the fucking Zionist who supports the killing of Palestinian babies, and people are still supporting her in the industry. Like, I don't know if the campaign is still running at this time, but she launched a game on Kickstarter which was part of the I think it's called Maple Valley or something, or River Valley, something like that. I don't remember what it was called. River Market, actually, I think it's called. Let's see if it's still running on Kickstarter. Yeah, 11 days to go. And just look at all the content creators who created content for this Zionist. Okay, so we have the Blackboard Gaming, so Dwayne and Alicia, so they created content for this game. We have Danny Standring, whose boyfriend is part of Shut Up and Sit Down, who back in 2021 claimed to be all pro-Palestinian and anti-Zionist, but then started shitting on me when I released the recording. So I know nothing about Danny Standring. All I know is that she has liked shit tweets about me in the past. I've never interacted with her in any way, but all I know is that she's dating that guy from Shut Up and Sit Down who used to claim to be pro-Palestinian. I have not seen him post anything. I'm not friends with him on Facebook. I don't really follow him anywhere, so I don't know if he's posted anything more recently about the genocide, but it just seemed interesting to me that, like, someone who claimed to be pro-Palestinian back in 2021 to silence me and stand up for his Zionist friend, you know, his girlfriend is covering a game by a fucking Zionist who is perfectly fine with Palestinian babies being killed. Like, okay, great. So I guess people don't care what their partners believe in. Little Big Thumbs, no idea who the hell they are, but they covered this game. So yeah, like, these are all the people who are perfectly fine with covering games created by a Zionist publisher. So, you know, these are people who don't have any fucking ideals or integrity if they claim to care about human rights. Brandy from Boarding School. We've got Love to Hate. We've got Kovre, so Ilya and Taylor, who always praise games from Kids Table Board Gaming. We've got Amanda Panda. We've got Obsessed with Board Games. We've got Magic and Meeples. And of course, you can't forget Our Family Plays Games, who, as last time I checked, was still sponsored by Kids Table Board Gaming. So here are all the content creators and people who still support a fucking Zionist in this industry. And, you know, civilians being killed in Israel is terrible. I will give you that. Like, sure, no one should be killed anywhere. But Helena Kappel on October 7th changed her profile picture to a yellow ribbon. And then you see all these people liking it. Like, I'm sorry, but if no one who is anti-Zionist would have changed their profile picture to a yellow ribbon on October 7th, every anti-Zionist Jew that I am friends with, that I follow on social media, would not do that and would be entirely against that. Just more proof that she's a fucking Zionist. Like, I don't know how much proof these people need that she's a fucking Zionist, apart from her, like, in the very beginning saying Palestinian lives matter is political and she doesn't approve of it. Yet she has no issue with people saying Black lives matter. So here are all the people who are supporting a Zionist publisher while the genocide rages on. The genocide continues. You see US involvement in trying to demolish any remaining buildings and build up their resort that they had plans for. You see that aid is still not being let through. You see that people's tents are being flooded. There's been very heavy raining. They're still not getting the food that they need to eat. They're still dying from starvation. They're still dying from disease. Like, there's just, the genocide continues. People are still being killed. People are still being killed in the West Bank, where there was no Hamas and there is no Hamas. Like, and the hostages we can now see was always just a fucking excuse. Like, the hostages have been returned. So why is the killing still happening? Like, there is still a genocide happening and you still see people in this industry just not giving a shit. Like, they just don't fucking care. And Eric Lang is one of those people. So yeah, so that is the state of the world and the state of this industry. So yeah, fuck all the Zionist bootlickers in this industry. I hope they all get a taste of their medicine someday. And Eric Lang is not a fucking leader of human rights in this industry when he is so openly friends with a fucking Zionist and supports her and will never ever condemn the genocide or say anything against Israel or Zionism. Like, it's just disgusting. So that is my rant of the week. Let me know if you saw anything that was noteworthy that happened in the last few weeks that I've been gone, that happened in this industry. But yeah, I think that that's all I can really think of at the moment. And of course, if anything comes to mind, I'll be back here next time with an update. So let's move on. So just very briefly, over the next few weeks, there will not be a new video the next Monday because PAX Unplugged is coming up and I won't be able to shoot a video during the weekend, next weekend. So yeah, so the next video will be sometime after that. And then I'm going to Iraq at the end of December. So things are going to get really busy really quickly and just feel really overwhelming as I try to wrap things up at work for a 2-week vacation to Iraq with my family. So yeah, it's just going to be crazy, hectic, busy, but I'll try to do my best to stay regular with content. But that's just a quick update about the next few weeks. So let's move on. This week's question of the week, I want to know, what is your favorite roll and write or flip and write game? So I think currently mine is Daydream. Like, this has probably taken the top spot for me. So let me know what your favorite is in the comments below, or which one are you most keen on playing in the comments below. And until next time, bye.